I credit everything to failure, to be honest. Like that expression, like you learn nothing from success, you learn everything from failure. I think that is literally, I feel like has been my career, has been the reason why I've made it from point A to point B, has been these incredible amounts of mistakes I've made.
Welcome, friends. I'm Kristen Merding, and this is Torches. Today we have the boundary-busting Qui Nguyen. He's an award-winning writer in film, theater, and television, and co-artistic director of Vampire Cowboys Theater Company. I'm really excited to have Qui here today. Thanks for being with us. Welcome.
I'm excited to be here, Kristen.
How did you come to downtown performance?
Purely, I think, I wouldn't say by accident, because it was definitely a choice to do things downtown. But it was I think I didn't realize how long my career downtown would have been. I didn't know that I would become a weird staple of mid aughts to mid teens theater in New York. But it was a place that I found my home in. It was where I figured out my voice. I wasn't one of those writers like Annie Baker or Brandon Jacob Jenkins who knew who they were, knew what stories they wanted to tell, and how they wanted to tell it right off the bat. I needed that time downtown, especially with Vampire Cowboys, to just experiment, to play, to figure out who I was, because I think I was coming from, I was a fight director before I started doing all this, so having that journey from fight director to playwright to artistic director to now making films, I feel like it's all been like one journey to figure out who I am as an artist.
Yeah, it feels like the continuity of all that is stories. And I read that your grandmother once said to you that stories are the only thing that you really have. Can you talk about that and why that has been central for you?
Yeah, I mean, my grandma, I was primarily raised by my grandma. My mom and dad were blue collar, so they were working early in the morning all the way to late night. So I spent primarily my time with my grandma, who, the moment I came home to the moment I went to bed, just incessantly told me stories, just like left and right stories about Vietnam, her childhood, my parents, about coming to America. And I remember I was 8 years old, and I kind of had enough, and I was like, Grandma, why are you telling me so many stories all the time? And my grandma's response was, because when we escaped Vietnam, we did it really quickly, and we weren't able to pack jewelry or money or even photos. So the only thing I have of value are these stories that are inside me. And if I don't give them to you, then they just kind of disappear. So I give them to you because it's the only thing of mine that has any worth that I want you to have. And something about how she said it, just kind of in my 8-year-old brain, realized that's kind of the only thing any of us have of worth. Money goes away, you can't bring all that stuff with you, but stories are the things we experience, the things we carry, the things we share. Some stories we have to tell a broad audience, some stories we only tell those we love, some we keep to ourselves because that's how important and precious they are. And so it became that thing, that calling, that made me realize this is what I want to do my whole life, to tell people how important stories are, to tell my own stories, and to get people to tell their own. So that became kind of my mission, as it were, to be a storyteller and to help other people tell their own stories.
Stories are all we have in this world, because they're the only things that we get to keep in our hearts.
I love your stories, Bawai.
You had a very distinct style in the downtown theater world of telling your stories. You were really working with comic books and action movies and hip hop. So how did all of those influences come to converge in the work that you were making?
Well, I guess I didn't know that I wasn't supposed to. And it was one of those things where I kind of only wanted to do what brought me joy. And I have incredible ADHD. And so things that give me joy don't last for very long. I immediately jump from one idea to the other. And so Vampire Cowboys became this pastiche of all the things I love: hip hop, martial arts, music, puppetry, multimedia, mainly because I was just trying to find a way to keep myself engaged. I kept on, because I knew I was going to spend like a month working on the show, another month seeing it every night with Vampire Cowboys on stage. And so it was this constant like, well, what's going to keep me tickled? What's going to keep me challenged? What's going to keep me, paying attention to rehearsals day in and day out? If it was just people sitting on a bench talking, I would have checked out really quickly. So that was a main impulse to kind of create this thing that just basically kept my attention, and that's kind of where the style came from. I wish there was a deeper reason other than I'm vastly immature and I have a very low attention span.
You talk about Vampire Cowboys as a geek theater. Do you think of yourself as a geek? Is that why you called Vampire Cowboys a geek theater, or was the label?
Well, I am sitting in front of a wall of comic books, so it's hard to deny my own geekiness of it all. I mean, the term geek theater came from Abby Marcus, as my managing director, my wife now. But when we started the theater company years ago, we had a very generic mission statement, and the mission statement was we wanted to be a theater that was soaked in the cultural bloodstream of the now, which meant nothing. It was just funny, cool words to be strung together. And so Abby was like, well, I need to write grant proposals, and I need an actual mission statement to really define who you are. And so she just sat me and Robert down and was like, well, what do you like? And what kind of shows do you want to make? And so I sat there and I had to say out loud what I wanted to make, which was I wanted to make action adventure theater. I wanted shows about superheroes that look like me, look like my friends. I wanted to play with hip hop and puppetry. And I just kept on saying all this stuff, and she just kind of rolled her eyes at me, and she was like, "Okay, so that's I'm going to call it geek theater. That's what we're going to call it. We are a geek theater company because all the shit you just said was super geeky." And so she made that term, and I remember distinctly when she said it. I kind of pushed back. I was like, Abby, if you write geek theater, they're gonna think you're trying to say Greek theater, and you misspelled it. And her words were, you think someone's gonna mistake Vampire Cowboys as a Greek theater company? And I was like, okay, maybe you're right. Maybe you're right on that. And so it was just a term she coined for us, and then I saw it popping up, in reviews, and other people who started doing work like us started being called geek theater. But it was just really just a thing so Abby could quickly say what we were in a grant proposal. So that's where it kind of came from.
That's hysterical. You touched on people that look like you. You once said you wanted to make work that a young yellow kid could see and feel proud of. So how has your identity shaped your aesthetic and approach to work?
Yeah, I mean, it's always been kind of inherent to Vampire Cowboys. I think that we were kind of like a secret. It was kind of our secret mission to do work that promoted heroes that were LGBTQ, BIPOC. It kind of broke convention of what you would see in like a big Hollywood fair. We were not making the movie that starred a Tom Cruise or a Hemsworth. We wanted our heroes to be female, BIPOC, or queer, and that was kind of the thing. But we didn't necessarily if you looked at our website, it was never actually ever stated anywhere on our website. Our website was about come see superhero shows, come see a zombie show, come see a slasher show. It was about we want you to see our pop culture, and then we wanted to take that opportunity to redefine what you would see as a pop culture hero. Because for me, it's been so important, and I remember this very distinctly as a kid, that the most powerful statements weren't, hey, I respect you as an Asian American. It was sitting in a movie theater with my friends and seeing something like Enter the Dragon or a Jackie Chan film, and having those friends go, man, I wish I could be like him. And saying, I want to be like someone that looked like me was such a powerful statement. And so that's something that I've kind of carried with me. That's why our theater company looked the way it did. That's why when I went on to make the movies that I've made, especially Raya and the Last Dragon, I tried to put my time and energy into those heroes that, when my kids get to see someone go, oh, when they see, literally it happened last Halloween when they saw little kids dressed as Raya, they're like, oh man, that is someone dressed up as a character that looks like my family, and that's that's a powerful statement, and so that's something that has always been important to me, to Abby, to all of Vampire Cowboys, to be making that kind of work. But again, we kind of didn't want to put that as the main mission. The main mission was like, hey, come have a good time. Is that come for the superheroes, stay for some definition, grid definition. I don't even know what I was trying to say with that, but.
Well, post Vampire Cowboys, you've done a ton of theatrical work that also has. You've done some work on your family story. I think you've done 3 plays
Yeah.
related to that.
Yep.
Yeah. Do you want to just talk a little bit about that and how that relates to what you were just speaking about?
Yeah, I think I think that when I started writing, I think my number one desire, the dream of all dreams, was to write 3 plays or write some plays about my family. I wanted to tell my family story desperately, but I had no idea how to write. So when I started out, I thought in my heart of hearts that there'd be one magical day that I would wake up and I would be like, David Henry Wong. I would be this person who kind of knew how to write. And then I spent the next 15 years of my life doing Vampire Cowboys. I was making these kind of like rude, immature plays that had a lot of music, a lot of martial arts. And I started realizing that I was never going to wake up one day and be some other artist than myself. And at some point, well, not some point, it was Abby. Like, it was Abby going, at some point, you're going to need to tell these stories. And you have a choice of waiting till your parents have passed away, or you can just tell them now. As the artist that you are, not the artist you think you're going to be one day. And so I sat down, and she was right. I wrote my first play of that series called Vit Gone. And instead of trying to pretend like I'm some other artist, I leaned in. It's very much a Vampire Cowboy show. It has, my language, my swearing, my hip hop, my music, my martial arts, my like all the things that have defined me as an artist all went into those plays. And in a lot of ways, it's funny. It was kind of the thing that kind of put me on the national map, right? Like, I was such a New York downtown artist for so long, and it was like Vit Gone, this play where I got to tell the story I always wanted to tell in the style that really defined me, and it became the thing that opened many doors nationally and also in Hollywood as well. So it was a big thing, and I kind of have to credit Abby for kind of kicking me in the butt to do it.
Son, I telling you secret. White people love playing Oriental. Mickey Rooney, Joel Brenner, David Carradine, they all wanting to be Oriental, just like you and me.
It was great, a great piece. I loved it. And it was also great that you brought a lot of your collaborators with you in that, and you've had real loyalty to the folks that you work with. Why is that important to you, to be with the same folks on projects over time?
I think it's important to me because I think ultimately I am an incredible introvert. Like, I am shy. I don't like talking about my feelings to strangers. So when I'm making theater, I'm not one of those writers who spends years on a draft. I don't rewrite my plays a whole bunch. I basically write it once. I write the most vulnerable version of myself on my plays, all the bad jokes, everything that makes me who I am. And then I pull together a whole bunch of people I deeply trust because I know this isn't going to be the best version of the things. I have to feel vulnerable enough to be able to talk about the things that make me uncomfortable and to be able to really show the worst craft version of myself possible, because I have to go through the ugly stuff to make it to the good stuff. And so I've been very loyal to them for many reasons. One, I care about them. They're definitely my family, but also because I can have like the real conversations, and they kind of push me. They know my style for a really long time. There's been many times when like a Maureen or a Will or a Paco or a John Hoche will just stop me and go, dude, this is crap. Like, what's the real shit? Like, really, really go there. I remember when I was choreographing fights for Poor Yellow Rednecks, it had been like a decade since I had choreographed a fight, and I was kind of not doing my best work, and or John, Paco, and Maureen just stopped me. It's like, what are you doing? Are you trying to choreograph the fight of like 45-year-old Qui, or are you trying to do the best work that you've ever done? I was like, kind of choreographing the one that I feel like I can pull off at 45. It's like, stop that. We know who you really are. And so I was like, okay, I don't mean to break anybody. It's like, break us. And so they pushed me. They call me out in the best possible ways. And so I credit Abby for a lot of the stuff that's happened for me, but I definitely credit all the artists that I've worked with through Vampire Cowboys for almost everything I've been able to pull off.
Amazing. It feels really risky the way that you are talking about writing your work, that you're putting the most vulnerable version of yourself out there. How do you deal with risk? It feels like having your collaborators is one way that you mitigate risk, but how do you feel about risk and failure when failure happens? Can you talk a little about that?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think I credit everything to failure, to be honest. Like that expression, like you learn nothing from success, you learn everything from failure. I think that is literally, I feel like has been my career, has been the reason why I've made it from point A to point B, has been these incredible amounts of mistakes I've made, right? Like I always go, the reason why I ended up being a writer was I was a failed actor. The reason why I ended up making a theater company was because I was failed at getting anyone to produce the plays I had written previously. The reason why I ended up in film and TV was because I failed at getting Vampire Cowboys to become a thing that could pay my rent. And so every mistake or every failure, quote unquote failure, kind of allowed me to pivot to something else, right? Like it was, I tell young people, I'm always like, when you're young, you are climbing a mountain and the only mountain you see is the one that you kind of dreamt up when you were 16, 17, 18. But as you're climbing, every time you fall, there's a moment you get to stop and look at the horizon. And when you get to see the horizon, you discover there's so many more mountaintops to traverse. And from that, you may realize this isn't the one I should be on. And from that has allowed me to kind of craft a career that my resume seems kind of stupid because it kind of spans everything from children's television to Hollywood movies to downtown theater to to all sorts of different writing. And I think it's all because I made different mistakes and realized things that I should have been doing here, I should have kind of tried to do somewhere else. And it's all kind of worked out in the most kind of wonderful way possible. So I credit a lot to failure.
I love that. How do you, on that, you obviously have developed craft over these years, and you are doing a lot of experimentation in the Hollywood space, in the film, the film and TV space, in the theater space. How do you mix those things together, your craft and your experimentation, and how do you keep experimenting and pushing yourself?
I mean, it kind of comes down to like that old question of like, what brings me joy? What is the thing that allows me what brings me to theater often is I desperately miss being in a room full of actors, right? Like that is a thing that I miss incredibly. Like when I'm making film, you spend a lot of time doing risk management, right? Like it's like many years of working on the script and working out design and spending a lot of time talking about cast. So then when you're on the day, you have the best, least risky version of your risky thing that you made possible. Where theater is risk day one. Like you're going in, you don't have that idea. All you know is you have a deadline in which you're going to show it, and you're just going to run to it. And so it depends on which version I feel I need to be, right? Like there's a version where I'm like, ooh, someone's giving me a lot of money and I can't mess it up, so I kind of need to be this version of me. In theater, I always joke that there's not enough money to make me not to make me cautious, right? There's not enough money to make me listen to your note if I don't believe in it. There's not enough money for me to pretend to be anything other than myself. So theater is that place where I get to truly, fully be myself.
Got your chauffeur Tonys and your sack of OGs, but the only peeps that created me are the geeks and the peeps of my theater VC. So keep on.
That's why I kind of still play in both arenas quite a bit, because I think both of them speak to different sides of my brain, to my artistic desires, the stories I want to tell, how I want to tell them, and how fast I want to tell them. Theater is just a faster mechanism for me to get an idea, an impulse to an audience, right? And film is definitely the thing where I'm like, well, I'm trying to get to the widest possible audience possible, but to do that, I know it's going to take years worth of work. And the types of stories I tell in film are different than the stories I tell in theater. Theater tends to be immediate. Film tends to be a thing where I'm like, well, I'm going to start now. I know that film's going to come out 5 years from now. And so it's less impulse and more about like, what is that? The question is always like, what is that dream thing you always wanted to tell? What is the thing you want to leave? It's those big, giant questions because I want to spend 5 years and a lot of money to make it. Whereas theater, I'm like, what do I want to tell right now? What are things I want to joke about right now? What kind of fight I want to choreograph right now? Do I want to make this song right now? Let's do it. And so it's different things.
Yeah, this is a nice segue to institutions and relationship with institutions. How have they supported or not supported your work?
I think I think institutions have been pretty integral to me crafting myself. I think when I was young, I thought that was not going to be the case. I thought I was going to be this completely self-made artist. That's why I started Vampire Cowboys. It is my first home, my first artistic home was Vampire Cowboys. It is the one I probably care about the most, but that's not to negate to say like the early days of who I was as a playwright, there's a lot of folks and places that invested in me, that kept me in this business, that crafted my voice. Like New Dramatist was a big place for me to be at, to kind of like connect me to the grander community of writers. Mai and EST and Youngblood gave me a place to experiment with a whole bunch of different artists that previously weren't part of my circle because of Vampire Cowboys. Hero Art Center, you guys were like definitely the first places for Vampire Cowboys to jump from like the 50-seat theater to a bit bigger and allowed to have a bigger audience, a little bit more pressure. And then now I have Manhattan Theater Club that is and they've put a lot of time and energy into supporting me in my Bit Gone trilogy, and then in film TV I've accidentally made Disney my home for a very long time. Like I started at Marvel, and then from there I went to Disney Animation. And so that they crafted, like I cut my teeth learning how to write movies for them. Like my first screenplay I ever wrote was for Marvel, which was crazy because that was a dream, right? But that was terrifying. And now I'm working for different producers, but I've taken the lessons from those institutions to really kind of build my craft from the bottom up. I definitely went to grad school and all that, but without a doubt, like grad school only got me to a certain point. The rest has really been these different experiences and institutions I've been lucky enough to be part of.
Yeah, you've alluded a little bit to this in some of the things you've talked about, but has access to resources changed the way you make work? You just talked about it a bit, but is there anything you want to add to that?
I mean, like, I think that it's interesting because there's times when I wish I had less access. Because when we started in Vampire Cowboys, we had very little, and we had a vast amount of imagination and a vast amount of gumption. And that was the biggest resource, right? And an audience. We were super, super lucky that we found an audience very early in our being. So those are the resources that we had. And I think some of the most imaginative, some of the most exciting, some of the best work I ever did was when I had the least amount of resources. Now that I have a lot of access, there are times, I won't lie, where there are moments when sometimes the answer is like, well, let's throw a whole bunch of money at it and it'll be better. And I guess they're right, especially in film. Money does make things look shinier and more filmic. But at times, I do miss the days where I'm like, okay, let's not do any of that. Let's just figure out how we make this together with like some butcher paper and some paints, and then who knows, maybe something cool will come from it. I miss those days, but I understand that like when people have resources and they need it to succeed. They're willing they're not willing to spend a week and have me just experiment, but it's different things, right? Like I think resources and access comes with certain limitations, whereas having a lack of them sometimes creates more imagination and more innovation.
Interesting. And if you could change one thing about institutions, what would that be?
I think if I can make one change, and I know what it would be. I think if there was I don't know how this works, but if they can invest on early career more than those that, like, I don't necessarily need the support now that I did then, right? And yet I've kind of been getting any room I want, right? Like if I want to make a piece of theater, I can almost go to almost any theater at this point, and they'll open their doors to me for me to play in those doors. And they're like, well, you earned this opportunity, but I'm like, yeah, but I feel like when I needed this the most was early on. Like that person needed these opportunities way more than this guy. This guy has every way to make shows in many different ways. The person who only gets like one shot or a couple shots at it, I feel like if you can give those guys, those kids, those people the opportunity to play with those resources, I think like how much better, how faster could our industry evolve if we invested a little bit more on those young artists. So that's what I would change. A little bit more investment on the youngins. Wait, just my cat has now jumped into the room. Come on, get out of here. I love you, but you can't be in here. You're very distracting.
Okay. So you were just talking about young artists. Do you think that the spirit of downtown still exists? Is that hard for you to say since you're not based in New York City anymore? You can punt this question if you want to.
I don't. Oh no, I'm not gonna punt it. I think I think it's interesting because I think that like the spirit of downtown is always gonna be there. I think the moment in time that was us, the Brick, Here Art Center, Ice Factory, Ohio. Like we definitely had a period where I think that kind of like that was special to us, right? That made the art we were making special. We were always in communication with each other. We were all collaborating with each other. It was a very special time. I think that time still exists. I don't know who those artists are. But I think young people will always find ways to tell their stories. I feel like they will always find a way to meet each other, group together, and tell their stories. I don't know how they do it now, right? I have no idea. There's less places to do shows. Rentals for rehearsal spaces are so much more expensive. Things have changed since we were doing Vampire Cowboys to now. But I still remember when I was starting Vampire Cowboys talking to older artists who was doing things in the 70s, and there was like many different storefronts and places to do things. I remember them distinctly going, I don't know how you're going to do it, young man, because when I did it, blah, 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 I had these resources, so I don't know how you're going to do it. And I realize now I'm that guy who's in his mid-40s looking back and going, well, I don't know how these kids are going to pull it off because it's so much harder. We naturally need to tell stories. We naturally need to communicate. If you need to do this, you're gonna find a way. And I feel like they're out there. They're still doing it. But you're right. It's been a minute since I hung out downtown. But I can't believe that the need to tell stories has gone away. Just because I got old.
I love that. How has your definition of success evolved over the years? How do you think of success as an artist now?
When I was young, I think success was simply being able to pay my bills by doing my art, right? To tell these stories, to be able to say on my income tax form that I was a playwright/screenwriter. That was the be-all, end-all. Obviously, I've been doing that for quite some time now, and my definition of success has been not just me being able to tell my stories, and making sure that I care about the stories that I tell, that they're not just pure work for hires, but also that at this point, that I'm also giving back. Like I do find it very important that though I get to tell my stories, it is very important to me that people, especially people who feel like their voices aren't being heard, that I can assist in helping them figure out a way to tell their stories to the largest audience possible, to be the hand that was given to me. to be able to return that favor, to pay it forward. That has now been my version of success, to be able to volunteer and mentor as much as I possibly can. I'm not a great mentor because I have a terrible schedule, but I try as much as I can to be able to help, you know.
Is there anything that we didn't talk about that you want to bring into the conversation?
I don't know. I'm sure I'll think of something way after this is over. I'm like, Kristen, I wish I would have. But in this moment, I'm just really happy to be able to connect with you again. It's been a minute, and I'm glad. It's good to see your face, even though it's virtually. But it's good to hear your voice. You know, as I was like, who did I run? I ran into Xander Duell.
Yeah.
His kid and my kid go to the same performing arts camp, Frenchwoods, upstate. And we were talking about like how much fun it was to collaborate and make shows with you. I think that you've always been so pro artist that probably the most fun I've ever had outside of my own company has been making shows with you, because you've been so you make it fun in the room, but you also make every moment just around the show a blast. Like from having dinners and drinks together to just playing games to just making weird stuff in the room. And so it was good connecting and talking about you with him. And he's doing incredible stuff too. He's now publishing a zine, music zine. So it's good to see all these incredible artists that I've worked with, that you've worked with, just kind of gone on to evolve into their kind of next versions of themselves.
Oh, well, thank you. We really did have a lot of fun, both on Lush Valley and Trade Practices, which were totally weird shows.
Super weird
and they
shows.
were really, really fun. And you made them the weirdness that was desired,
Yeah,
It was great. Thank you so much, Qui. It is so great to talk with you and to hear about all of your success. I'm so thrilled for everything that's been happening for you. And it's so great to have your voice being heard in all these different contexts.
Oh, thank you, Kristen.
Thank you. Thanks to HowlRound for hosting us, and we hope you'll tune back in for more of Torches.